This is Trendy Storm and you are watching 19th part of Naruto the Unknown Dojutsu. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
3 hours ago, Whirlpool Land. Kenzo sat quietly a few meters away from a house he had just finished destroying. Orders were orders, but he couldn't help but get bored. Jujiro dispatched them to Uzushiogakure to wreak havoc on the main village as well as the surrounding villages. It didn't stop him from becoming bored and causing all of this havoc. He looked over to a house in the distance, where Fuko was still working on the task assigned to them. Fuko had already brought down more than 20 worn-down houses compared to Hisa's score in a video game, while he only had 6. It was natural for Kenzo to become bored easily. Even while living in the Empire, which is like heaven for a ninja, he can get bored easily. Going on solo missions or seeing his blue dragon, Satsuki, were the only things that could calm him down and bring energy to his soul. He was a ninja who disliked teamwork and prefers to work alone, openly declaring to anyone that Satsuki is the only partner he requires. Unfortunately for him, he had to lend her to Hiro in order to complete a minor task in the Leaf Village. Although he was hesitant to have someone other than himself ride atop his large friend, he had no choice because Hiro would be insane to try to get the ship they used to get to the mainland. It was impossible due to the size of their ship in the first place. The blue-haired ice user vowed to be as quick as possible so that Satsuki and him could return earlier than expected, and Kenzo had no choice but to comply. It had been over an hour and a half since the Frost Commander had left Uzu, but it seemed like an eternity to Kenzo. Maybe he could help himself to the 10-day supply of food they had on board? He wasn't hungry at all. He wasn't like Fuko, who just went along with whatever orders were given to her. After a heavy sigh, he suddenly felt something bad approaching, and as soon as he turned his head to the right, he ducked to save himself from a massive piece of debris caused by Fuko destroying the already worn-down homes. As he growled, a tick mark appeared on his head, and he turned to face his female companion. "What the hell was that for?" he exclaimed. "Don't you see I'm standing right here?" Fuko turned to him and bowed to apologize, but Kenzo simply waved it off. "Yeah, whatever. By the way, do you think Hiro will return soon? I'm getting irritated because he promised to be there quickly but has yet to arrive." He waited for her response, and after a few seconds, the woman shrugged, unsure whether she could answer his question. This made Kenzo groan loudly. It simply meant that he had to learn to wait because Fuko was clearly not the best person to talk to right now. "This is getting so boring. I can't possibly stand here all day. My heart is starting to race. Damn it, where the hell is Hiro?" Kenzo chuckled sarcastically as the young woman looked lost for a second before pointing to their ship and making eating gestures with her hands and mouth. "Yeah, right. I'm not even hungry, woman," he said before walking over to a nearby rock and sitting on it. "I'll just sit here until he returns, and you can carry on with whatever you were doing. I just hope Hiro doesn't get into any trouble while he's in Konoha. That village has a habit of getting into trouble, considering it was a major factor in the previous Shinobi World Wars." Fuko then continued destroying the remaining houses, while Kenzo was simply bored, sitting on a useless rock. A few minutes later, just as Kenzo was about to return to work because it was better than doing nothing, he and Fuko heard something flapping in the sky. Kenzo immediately began cheering loudly and jumping up and down in delight, knowing that it could only mean one thing. Meanwhile, Fuko had no idea what he was cheering for, so she looked up at the sky to find out. A dragon approached the extinct village of Uzushiogakure. A true dragon. It was a medium blue dragon with 4 small legs that ended in 4 sharp-clawed toes. It had a tail like a regular reptile, but it had 2 fins near the end that resembled small wings due to their unique shape, both of which were also blue. Its large, bat-like wings gliding through the air as it began to descend to the ground, accompanied by the person riding on it. The dragon had a medium-length snout with razor-sharp teeth hidden inside. It had 2 mane-like appendages on each side of its head, which added to its intimidating appearance. Finally, two small horns protruded from the top of its head, with another beneath its chin. Satsuki, Kenzo's best friend, was standing there. "Hello, hero. Come on over here," Kenzo exclaimed at the top of his lungs, waving his arms frantically. Fortunately for him, both the dragon and the Frost Commander heard his screams as the large creature prepared to land. Hiro jumped off of Satsuki as soon as she landed, and he began fixing his clothes. Fuko stopped destroying the nearby houses to inquire about their leader's special task. Kenzo, on the other hand, was too preoccupied with embracing his battle partner, with the dragon beginning to lick his face in pure joy, much to his amusement. Their reunion was cut short, however, when Hiro cleared his throat quite loudly. Kenzo turned his head to look at his comrades and noticed that he was the only one who wasn't with them, which caused him to smile nervously. He quickly turned back to Satsuki and patted her on the head. "I'm just going to go talk to Hiro and Fuko, okay? Why don't you go wreck the houses around here? If you manage to impress me, I'll give you a surprise later." The dragon's eyes widened as it took off, using its powerful wings and legs to destroy the remaining houses in Uzushiogakure. Kenzo stood there admiring his friend dragon until he heard Hiro clear his throat again, causing the snake-like man to groan loudly. "Okay, here I come. Will you please stop doing that?" he snarled, irritated by the blue net. Consider the irony. He had to obey the orders of someone younger than him because that person was the leader of the group he was in. Kenzo decided that now was the time to speak up, as he approached both the Frost Commander and the Woman of the Shadows. "So, how did your mission turn out? Successful? So, what exactly did you do?" he inquired, his voice uninterested. Hiro pushed his glasses up and put on a serious expression. "My goal was straightforward," he began in his usual emotionless tone. "I went to Hidden Leaf Village to see if they were paying attention to us. It was difficult because the people couldn't stand the cold." Kenzo laughed. "That's just how they are when they're around you," he joked. "Do they intend to set their sights here? We have nothing to be concerned about for the time being." However, I witnessed Kakashi of the Sharingan receiving a piece of parchment that, despite being only 8 words long, clearly describes the true nature of His Highness's plan. The Eclipse Portal Plan. Hearing this caught the woman and man in front of him off guard, as they both appeared nervous. "You have nothing to be afraid of, my fellow eyes. I've found a way to divert the Hokage of that village's attention away from us in this location." "And how did you accomplish that?" With a raised eyebrow, the snake-like man inquired. "I'm assuming you two are aware of what the former Leaf Shinobi, Orochimaru, is up to." Kenzo looked uneasy when he heard the name of the man who had experimented on him, but he nodded along with Fuko. He wanted to claim Sasuke Uchiha's body for himself, just as our spies had predicted. But, based on my observations, the little Uchiha appears to have overcome his desire for power. The ninjas of Orochimaru offered Sasuke Uchiha the power he desired, but he remained calm. He didn't even appear conflicted, which meant he knew exactly what he should do. He wanted to dupe those 4 into thinking he wanted to accompany them, only to have them arrested. "Do you two manage to get me this far?" Kenzo and Fuko exchanged nods. "In addition, one of my other responsibilities was to locate the Uzumakis who lived in that village. I may have found the little kid, but Kushina Uzumaki was nowhere to be found. In any case, as long as we know of either of them, it will apply to both of them because they are family. I followed the kid I suspected, and they made their way to Kakashi of the Sharingan." Following their conversation, a small piece of paper fell from the boy's pocket, which was the parchment containing the 8 words that explain what the Eclipse Portal is all about. "And that's when I realized I needed to act quickly to divert their attention away from this village for a while." He then took a small metallic spider-like object from his pocket. "I brought spiders with me in case of an emergency, which obviously occurred earlier." "Wait, you're mind-controlling a Konoha native right now?" Hiro smiled and nodded, while Kenzo's face was expressionless. Fuko's face was expressionless, devoid of any emotion. "Well, I suppose I'm not surprised." Kenzo kept going, rubbing his chin. "You obviously can't use frost in public, so who is your victim this time? Have you inserted the spider into his neck? You're aware that it works best when placed near the brain. I just hope it wasn't too close to anything sensitive." Hiro gave an evil grin. "It's none other than Sasuke Uchiha, Kenzo. And he's now under my command. He'll divert the Hokage's attention away from us." The Uzumaki then started reminiscing about what had happened at the time. Earlier that day, Sasuke Uchiha was lost in thought, trying to figure out where Sakura, Kiba, and Hinata were going. He didn't care where the three ninjas ahead of him were going, at least not right now. He was so perplexed by what was going on that he just wanted to know what was going on. It was obvious that he was not having a good day. First, he got up early in order to spar with Naruto. 2. Kakashi-sensei arrived before Naruto. Third, Naruto completely ignored him in their alleged fight. He just wanted to know why no one was paying attention to him and what the hell was going on. And all he had to do was follow his friends in front of him, and once they arrived at Naruto's location, he'd ask the Dobi about what was going on at the time. He was so engrossed in his thoughts that he didn't even notice he had just collided with someone. The Uchiha fell to the ground after feeling a strong force push him down from behind, but he quickly rose to his feet. He gave the cloaked man still on the ground who had bumped into him a quick glance before continuing on his way. He was in a hurry and didn't want to get sidetracked. "Wait, why is my back itchy all of a sudden?" he wondered, scratching his lower back as he ran. "It's probably just a mosquito bite or something," says the doctor, he guessed, shrugging it off as he ran. However, he had no idea that the cloaked man was hiding a large smirk beneath the hood that was concealing his face before standing back up and rushing out of the scene. Flashback concludes. That makes sense. So, what are you going to make him do now? You have now taken control of his mind, and you will decide what he will do. Remember, if you want the Hokage's attention, you have to make him do something big, right, Fuko? He turned to face the woman beside him, who simply nodded in response. The Frost Commander lowered his gaze, allowing the sunlight to reflect off the lens of his glasses. "Remember how I said Uchiha Sasuke was cured of his desire for power?" Both eyes of Storm agreed with a nod. "Let's just say he's going through a massive attitude change right now. And I have no doubt that him looking like a rebel will take their attention away from us. For the time being, let us continue with our main task in this location, and then we'll camp out here for the night. Tomorrow, we'll set out for the nearby villages. Got it?" Hiro began to chuckle evilly as he received his response in the form of nods. "I almost feel sorry for the Uchiha I brainwashed. Konoha, tomorrow." Sakura's eyes opened to reveal only the color white. She sat up quickly after that, looking around her frantically and taking deep breaths. She apparently had a nightmare the night before. A nightmare involving both Sasuke and her. She'd heard Sasuke was still plotting revenge on his brother, but when she approached him in tears, his voice seemed genuine. He claimed that he didn't really want revenge and that it was all a ruse, but then he abruptly changed his mind. When she felt someone punch her in the stomach, it turned out to be the Uchiha. When she remembered the look on his face during that nightmare, he appeared to be a crazy maniac. He appeared to be possessed by an evil spirit at the time, which was exacerbated by the fact that his Sharingan was activated. In that dream, he told her that he didn't need her or the village, which brought her to tears. He went on to say that getting revenge had always been his goal and that he had never changed. In reality, it made Sakura cry as she looked down on the bedsheets, recalling those words in her mind. But she couldn't help but wonder what had caused that shift in his words. He was warm to her 1 second, then turned cold and cruel the next. Is it even possible? She began to ponder what had caused the shift. That is, until she remembered what happened prior to his abrupt personality shift. "Eep!" she exclaimed, her face turning as red as a tomato. She had to cover her mouth with both hands this time to avoid a louder squeak, remembering how close she was to Sasuke during that nightmare. They had almost kissed, their faces almost touching, their lips almost brushing, and it was only a second away from them if it hadn't been for the stupid plot twist in Sasuke's case. How would it have been different if a— Wait, stop right there. She exclaimed to herself, taking deep breaths as the flush on her face faded. I shouldn't be thinking about romance right now. Wrong, Sakura. Shaking her head, she focused on what had caused Sasuke's personality shift in her dream. She was concerned that it might happen in real life as well, because Uchihas are known to have unstable personalities. As Sasuke's friend, she had to do what was necessary to ensure his safety in the hands of the village. Wait, why am I even here? She asked herself, taking another look around. Yes, she was on a hospital bed, dressed in the clothes of patients. Was she ill? She raised her hand to her brow to see if she had a fever or something, but she didn't feel anything. She rubbed her chin and furrowed her brows as she looked out the window, the sun shining in the sky. If I'm not sick, why am I here? Isn't it already morning? Wait a minute, the last thing I remember was I was driving around the village late at night. Why was I out late again? Unfortunately, just as she was about to make a guess, the door to her room opened, causing her to turn her head to see who was coming in. Her eyes widened slightly as she noticed the Hokage, Tsunade Senju, enter her room with a solemn expression. Ho Hokage-sama! Sakura exclaimed, surprised that the village's leader had appeared in her room. Tsunade turned, surprised to hear the patient's voice, to see that the pinkette was already up, which was a good thing. Look at you. You're finally awake, Sakura Haruno. She exclaimed, crossing over to the chair beside her bed and taking a seat. It's a good thing you awoke from your unconscious state. I was going to just check on your condition, but now that you're awake, it actually makes things a lot easier. Sakura just stared at the blonde Hokage, unsure of what she was talking about. Last night, you were discovered unconscious on the ground near the northern part of the leaf, Sakura Haruno. The Anbu discovered you at approximately 7:27 p.m. last night and immediately transported you to the hospital. Obviously, you being unconscious on the ground won't happen by chance, which is why I came here. Tsunade then locked his gaze on Sakura's emerald eyes. What happened the night before? Sakura is completely perplexed. She had no recollection of what happened the night before, owing to the intense pain she was experiencing right now. Hokage-sama. I'm not sure. What? Tsunade cocked his brow. Pinkette scratched the back of her neck. I'm not sure what happened last night. Was I really unconscious? Or was I just sleeping? All I remember is following someone around and then suddenly feeling something hard hit me near my chest. But other than that, I have no idea what happened. Do you think you can tell me what happened last night, Hokage-sama? Please? Tsunade sighed and nodded, raising both of her brows slightly. Alright, since you don't remember, I'll give you a quick recap. But I must warn you that this only happened after you were discovered by the Anbu. Whatever happened before that, only you can remember it, and if you don't, we'll lose every chance we have to figure out what happened to you last night. Did you get that? Pinkette gave a nod. First and foremost, some Anbu discovered you about an hour after completing a special task I assigned to them. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you that it has nothing to do with you. While they were waiting, one of them apparently became bored and demanded that they go see what was going on. He was getting antsy, and the others were too. The Anbu captain at the time had no choice but to agree with what they were saying, so he let them scout the northern edge of the village to see if the enemy they were expecting had arrived or not. That's when they noticed your body on the ground, Sakura. Does that sound familiar? Tsunade's words struck a chord with the younger Kunoichi. What is the Anbu? What were they doing where she was in the first place? Do you think you can tell me, Hokage-sama, what the Anbu was doing there in the first place? Why, after all, would they need to be there? When the Godem narrowed her eyes slightly, she began to sweat nervously. Please, Hokage-sama, I need to know. It might be the only way for me to remember. If I knew what they were doing where I was. As she sighed, the medic nin massaged her brow with her fingers. This was insane, but perhaps the little girl was correct and this was the only way she could remember. After all, it was only one girl, so it wasn't the end of the world. Furthermore, she was his teammate, so she would understand exactly what she was going through. Well, if you really need to know, I sent a few Anbu to the northern part of the village at Uchiha Sasuke's request. Sakura cocked her brow. How did Sasuke get involved in this discussion? Was he somehow involved? 4 sound shinobi approached him around 5:14 p.m. yesterday, according to him. He stated that Orochimaru desired to bestow upon him the power that he still lacked. Uchiha Sasuke fooled them into thinking he was going with them, but it turned out that he was aware of their plans. The next thing he did was approach me and tell me everything that had happened. I was hesitant to lend some Anbu to deal with those 4 sound ninjas, but I had no choice. Uchiha Sasuke was supposed to meet them an hour later and give the Anbu a signal to let them know when they were going to attack. A lot of things were trying to fit into the puzzle inside Sakura's head. Yet they all seemed strangely familiar. It's as if she was there when it happened and remembers what they were saying. Late in the afternoon. 4 ninjas of sound power. It finally made sense. Oh, my god! Exclaimed Sakura, her voice echoing throughout the room, surprising Tsunade with her sudden shock. Then it wasn't a dream. Oh no. Sasuke-kun. She clenched her fists around her hair, her mouth wide open. I can't believe it, Sasuke-kun. She sobbed, remembering what had happened the day before. Starting with the events in the Uchiha compound and ending with Sasuke and her talking to each other. Sakura, what is it? Tsunade inquired. Did you recall anything? Tell me so that we can come up with a solution. The young girl slowly looked up at the Hokage, her expression indicating that she had recently gone insane. It's dreadful. Hokage-sama. He is Sasuke-kun. What a drag. Muttered Shikamaru as he followed Naruto through the tower's long corridor. Someone apparently told him that the Hokage desired his presence before he could even eat breakfast. Because the messenger stated that it was extremely urgent, the young Nara was unable to ask questions at the time. On the way, he met the blonde-haired Uzumaki, who told him that another messenger had told him that Tsunade wanted to see him as well. Both agreed to ask each other questions when they arrived at the tower, so it didn't take long for them to arrive. Could you please stop saying that for once in your life? Naruto groaned and looked dissatisfied at Shikamaru. In response, the latter simply shrugged, causing the blonde to sigh. Anyway, why do you think we were referred to as Ba-no, Hokage-sama? He quickly corrected himself before he could even refer to Tsunade by her nickname when they were alone. Do you think it's a mission? What makes you think that? Almost all of the village's Junin are on missions. Shikamaru responded, though he wasn't particularly interested. Kakashi-sensei is still in the village, Naruto clarified. For some reason, Anko-sensei accepted the mission assigned to him. Perhaps she wanted to give him a break for the time being. After all, it's always Kakashi-sensei who works his tail off to provide them with money for food and other necessities. I actually saw him go for an early morning run earlier. That's when Naruto noticed they were now both in front of the Hokage's office door. After you, the Nara said, allowing his friend to enter first. Naruto sighed, but pushed the door open to let them in. Tsunade was sitting in her seat, her face solemn as she stared at the two of them. Shikamaru pushed the blonde Chunin further into the room as he stood frozen in front of her gaze. Naruto laughed sheepishly at his own antics, but Tsunade seemed unconcerned at the time because her mind was clearly elsewhere. The two Chunins in front of her were the cue she needed to begin speaking. Now that you two are here, I'll make it quick and clear so that we can get right down to business, Tsunade said, resting her chin on her clasped hands. I regret to inform both of you that Sasuke Uchiha has left the village to travel to the Hidden Sound, she said, which caused both boys to widen their eyes. According to Sakura, he was all kind in just 1 second and then abruptly changed the next. He acted like a maniac driven by battle, and he never lost his desire for power. He would go to the Sound because that is where he would clearly obtain that power. From Orochimaru. Shikamaru exclaimed, Orochimaru? Why would Sasuke go to such a dangerous man? Meanwhile, Naruto was reacting differently. What do you mean, Ba-chan? He exclaimed, his usual respect for the Hokage gone. Surely there must be an oversight. Sasuke couldn't possibly do that. He promised me that we would grow stronger together. He said we'd help each other achieve our goals. I'm going to assist him in defeating his brother, so you can't be serious that Sasuke will do that. Do you have any doubts about your teammate's words, Naruto? The Uzumaki lowered his gaze to the ground. He muttered, and no. Tsunade took a deep breath after that. As of now, we have no idea and no time to figure out why Uchiha Sasuke abruptly turned his back on the village. I summoned you two here because I want you to form a team. Surely you both know that almost all of the village's Junin are on missions? Shikamaru and Naruto both nodded. As a result, I have no choice but to enlist you two to lead a team of genins in retrieving Sasuke Uchiha from the 4 sound ninjas who kidnapped him. I'm counting on you two because you're the only Chunins in the Leaf, along with Sakura. Sakura Haruno is currently recovering after being assaulted by Sasuke Uchiha the night before, so she will be unable to accompany you. You have 30 minutes to organize your team and begin the mission. Don't let me down. Best wishes. After she finished speaking, both boys bowed and exited the room. Shikamaru was already planning what to do and who to recruit for their mission once they were outside. Naruto was already talking to him while he was deep in thought. Look, Shikamaru, I'm going to leave the plan and who to add to our little team to you, he muttered, his brow furrowed. You have the advantage over me because you are far smarter than me. He waited for a response, but the Nara didn't respond. Naruto then sighed deeply and looked down at the ground, sad. Why on earth would Sasuke leave? I thought he'd outgrown his desire for vengeance? I swear, when I see him leaving us like that, he's going to get some serious ass beating. He then moved his gaze to his companion. Hey, Shikamaru. What do you think happened, Toa? That's when he noticed the young Nara had already outrun him. When Shikamaru turned to smile back at Naruto, a tick mark appeared on his head. Wait for me, you lazy ass. He yelled, sprinting after him. The two Chunins searched the village for team members to accompany them on the mission to find Sasuke. They first went to Choji's house, where he was still sleeping despite his teammate calling out his name. This prompted Shikamaru to crack open a bag of barbecue-flavored potato chips. He invites Naruto to eat with him, and the latter simply continues with his unusual plan of summoning Choji. Choji opened the sliding door and snatched the last potato chip from Naruto before he could even eat it, much to Naruto's chagrin. Choji went on to say that he will never throw away a perfectly good potato chip, that is, until a certain something tries to take it for himself. Unfortunately for Akamaru, Choji ate it before he could reach it. Kiba Inuzuka then appeared, stating that his teammate, Shino Aburame, would be unable to accompany them due to a special mission he had with his father. Naruto then asked Shikamaru if he was really going with them, to which the latter simply shrugged. After Choji changed into his usual clothes, all 3 of them, 4 if you include Akamaru, followed Shikamaru's lead, including Naruto. He knew Shikamaru was far superior in terms of planning and strategy, so he had no problem allowing Nara to take over as leader. After that, they came across the base of a large staircase leading to the park, where they saw Neji and Lee standing at the top. Fortunately, they were able to notice the 4 shinobis waiting for them down below. Neji then helped Lee down the stairs because he was using a crutch, confirming that he hadn't fully recovered since the exams. Shikamaru quickly reviewed the situation, and Neji informed them that he would accompany them on the mission. He then turned to Lee and asked if he could work through his injury and join them, but much to everyone's surprise, he turned away and said that they would continue without him. They decided not to waste any more time and proceeded to the main Konoha gate, where they completed their final preparations before embarking on their mission. This chain of events led to them standing just inside the door, waiting for a specific plan to unfold because they can't just charge in and chase after the 4, which would almost certainly result in disaster. All eyes were on Shikamaru, who was still deep in thought, pondering what to do once they moved on and proceeded. Only a few minutes remained before their 30-minute preparation was over, and Shikamaru finally stepped forward in front of them, clearing his throat before speaking. To begin with, this is a rescue mission. We're in a pursuit situation, which means the enemy already has a significant advantage over us, he started. That being said, I'm assembling us in a deployment formation capable of repelling any enemy assault. If any of you do not follow my exact orders, we will all perish. Kiba, Akamaru, and Choji were among those who flinched in fear at his final statement. We'll go with a single file strike formation for now. As we all know, the spearhead is the most important position, so Kiba will take it. All eyes then turned to the mentioned Inuzuka. You're honest. With all of your walks with Akamaru, you're the most familiar with the terrain of the Land of Fire. With that in mind, you should be able to track Sasuke's scent while sniffing out any booby traps the enemy may have set. We'll also have 2 sets of eyes up front, because you and Akamaru will be better able to protect us from an attack. Hold on, why do we need some kind of formation? Kiba inquired, raising an eyebrow. Naruto can, after all, fly, right? Can't he just transport us all to where Sasuke is? Besides, we'll have a better view of the surroundings when we're in the air, so we'll find Uchiha in no time. Well, unless you want me to run out of chakra and be useless to any of you, I'll gladly carry you all as we search for Sasuke. Naruto retorted, his eyes narrowing at Kiba. I can't transport any of you because it consumes too much chakra. And carrying all of you one by one will be even more difficult because using the meteor on and off results in even more chakra loss. Understand? When Naruto saw Kiba about to speak again, he immediately recognized what he was about to ask and spoke ahead of him. Don't even try to summon Mika, he grumbled. You were going to request that I summon her, weren't you? Kiba only smiled awkwardly, causing Naruto to sigh. No, it does not. First and foremost, she is a phoenix, which means she can carry all of us at once. But have you considered that if the enemy sees 5 ninjas flying through the air, they'll split up, making it much more difficult for us? We're going to get Sasuke on our own, so no one is going to use any techniques to easily get to those 4 sound ninjas. We'll approach them on foot as an elite Chunin and co-leader of this mission. When did you gain authority? Kiba inquired. Shikamaru has been the only one acting like a leader since earlier. Did the fact that Hokage-sama spoke to both of us at the same time when she gave us the mission answer your question? Shikamaru replied, a smirk on his face. Since it was now 2 against 1, the latter simply raised both of his hands in defeat, calming down in his place. Yours truly will be the second in line. I'll be able to direct everyone behind me using silent hand signals from there, and because I'll be so close to Kiba, I'll be able to react to any situation. He then moved his gaze to the blonde Uzumaki. Naruto is in the middle of the line. The middle position is ideal for you. Because you are the most capable of making quick moves in front or behind you. You're the foundation stone. You also have the perfect artillery to support each of us in the front or back with your shadow clone jutsu and space techniques, thanks to your versatility. You can count on me, he said, grasping the handle of the sword strapped to his back and swinging it around playfully a few times. It was the sword he had acquired the day before, Stardust. Zabuza didn't waste any time in training him after he explained how he came across the mysterious sword that fell out of the sky. He didn't bother asking any questions because this was the perfect opportunity for him to pass on his extraordinary swordsmanship skills. Of course, Naruto made up a simple lie to hide the fact that it had been sent by an unknown individual, the same man who had sent Mika to Earth. After quickly explaining what was going on to his friends, he apologized to Sasuke for not being able to continue their sparring because training with his new weapon was more important. The Uchiha simply shrugged and returned home, saying they'd fight another time, but not before smacking Naruto in the head as punishment for keeping him waiting for more than 2 hours. After that, Zabuza and the blonde boy continued their training, with Hinata and Kiba watching and Sakura fleeing to who knows where. Despite only having 1 day of training, he was confident in his abilities, and his determination is not to be mocked. "Wow, Naruto, when did you get a sword?" Choji inquired, whistling in surprise. "It looks fantastic." "Oh, don't worry, I'll explain later." "Hee," said the blonde, immediately returning back his sword, cursing himself internally for having to show off in front of them. Now he had to tell them yet another lie about where the sword came from and how he got it. Shikamaru, thankfully, came to his rescue. "You can tell them stories another time, Naruto. This is far more important." He turned to face his Team 10 teammate. "Choji, you're up next." "Choji, you may not be fast, but you have the greatest striking power of any of us, barring Naruto." "Kiba, Naruto, and I will surprise the enemy in front of us, and then you will swoop in and finish them off. You'll be our second wave of attack." He turned to Neji without further ado. Neji is the last in line. Being the rear lookout is the most difficult position to hold. I want you to constantly scan ahead for enemies as well as the area around our ranks with your Byakugan. Each of us must also patrol a specific side to ensure that our line is not disrupted or destroyed. Myself and Kiba will scan ahead, Naruto to the left, Choji to the right, and Neji will patrol behind. We can bring Sasuke back to this village if we stick to this simple plan. Do you understand? Got it. Exclaimed everyone except Neji, who only nodded in response. Then let's get moving. Shikamaru led the way with that, but before they could truly leave the village, they heard approaching footsteps. They all turned around to see Sakura approaching them with a concerned expression on her face. Hinata, Ino, and Tenten stood behind her, all with the same expression on their faces. "Sakura-chan?" said Naruto, perplexed. "Aren't you supposed to be in the hospital right now? What brings Hina-chan and the others here?" "If I could, I met them on my way here," the pinkette said, clenching her fist and looking down at the ground. "I wish I could accompany you on this mission, Naruto. But I can't. I just got out of the hospital, so I don't have much time. I'll just state the obvious." She turned to face her teammate. "Sasuke-kun is not a bad person." The recovery team members all widened their eyes. "I knew he punched me in the stomach, but it was so strange and perplexing. Because just seconds before, he was so calm and there was no sign of anger in his face. But then he snapped or something, which is why he knocked me out." "Are you sure about that, Sakura?" Naruto asked, checking her words. He had an idea what she was trying to say, but there was no way to prove it. That blasted Mangekyo Sharingan better not be the root cause of it, he reasoned. "I'm sure," she said, nodding. "Please return him, but do not kill him. I know he still has good in him. If he had completely snapped, he would have killed me last night. But he didn't. Maybe he's being controlled or something. I don't know. Just bring him back. He's a Konoha ninja, and we can't let him go like that." Naruto grinned and gave a thumbs up. "Don't be concerned. I'm bringing that Teme back, even if it means dragging him all the way here. I'll bring him back for all of us, Sakura-chan. He's a friend of mine, and I'm not going to let him go to Orochimaru. But I'm going to give him a good thrashing for abandoning us." Is that all right with you, Sakura-chan? Even though she was sad at the time, the pinkette managed to smile before nodding. Okay, I promise you, he's not going anywhere.
This is his home, with all of us.
And I'm not going to let him abandon us. Taking his gaze away from her, he noticed Hinata approaching him and wrapping her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. Please be cautious, she mumbled. I will, he said softly, patting her head before kissing her on the forehead. After she had separated from him, the Hyuga looked at her cousin with concern, only flashing a thumbs up to show how he was feeling at the time. As Sakura stared at the entire recovery team one more time before Shikamaru made the go-to order, Hinata returned with Ino and Tenten. Let's go. Hearing that, the five began to run along the path towards the vast landscape of the Land of Fire, following Shikamaru's planned formation. The girls who were left at the Konoha gate waved their arms goodbye and began screaming their goodbyes, despite the fact that they knew they couldn't be heard. When they were finally out of sight, Sakura began to return to the hospital, Hinata went home to begin her training, Ino returned to her family's shop, and Tenten went to the training grounds to do some personal training of her own. Meanwhile, Kakashi Hatake was sitting on one of the large tree branches just outside the Konoha gate, deep in thought. He was still in the village, as Naruto had stated, and he had been watching his blonde student's actions since earlier. Apparently, he, too, was perplexed by the current events, including both Sasuke's sudden defection and his own problem with the piece of paper he discovered yesterday. He thought to himself, Sasuke's gone. This doesn't make sense. I thought he'd overcome his desire for power. Was it all a ruse to get us to relax our guard? Is your hatred for your brother so strong that you would abandon your friends, comrades, and the village for a chance at vengeance, Sasuke? He then pulled a small strip of paper from his pocket. Then there's the matter of this parchment. Where it came from is a mystery to me. How did it end up in Naruto's pocket? If only Hokage-sama had listened to what I was saying the day before. Flashback. Do you think this is unusual, Hokage-sama? Kakashi showed Tsunade the piece of paper he found that had fallen from Naruto's pants. I know these 8 words mean something. We should figure out what it means and decipher this type of code. Are you sure, Kakashi? Tsunade asked, raising an eyebrow and crossing her arms. Maybe it's just a silly insult message from the brat. As you said, seeing it fall from his pocket is unusual. But who knows? It could be his handwriting. I wouldn't be surprised if Naruto walks through that door and asks for that paper from you. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, he said as he placed the paper on her desk. When I see Naruto's handwriting, I recognize it. Furthermore, he is right-handed, whereas the person who wrote this is clearly left-handed based on how the words were written. Hokage-sama, compare it to your own handwriting. Tsunade sighed and grabbed the strip of paper, examining the writing on it. When she noticed the strange way the words were written, she furrowed her brow. She quickly took out a pen and tried writing on another piece of paper to see if it differed from hers. Her eyes widened when she realized the paper had been written by a left-handed person. The difference was visible in the way the words were written. She sighed deeply and rested her head atop her hand before returning the small strip of paper to Kakashi. Kakashi took it back and clenched his fist as he listened to what Tsunade had to say next. Well, you make a good point, Kakashi. It is different from normal handwriting. The only thing I can say right now is that it could be some kind of code with a direct meaning. We'll have to look into how Naruto managed to get through. My guess is that they all have single meanings that combine to form one clear message. Like this, ice, and shadow. For now, all I can think of that can be associated with those words are Haku and Shikamaru. But that was just a guess. It's too obvious for that to be a giveaway. Don't you agree, Hokage-sama? The woman in front of him agreed with a nod. If we can figure out what it means, it could be a hint as to what the Akatsuki is planning or what Orochimaru is up to right now. Yes, I agree. But in order to dig deeper into this, we need to find the boy who discovered the paper in the first place. Is Naruto occupied right now? Kakashi began to rub the back of his neck. He's currently training with Zabuza, Hokage-sama. If you want me to, I can. Tsunade cut him off. No, that won't be necessary. We are not in a hurry about this. We'll continue this conversation with Naruto in the morning to discover the truth behind this mysterious message. Flashback concludes. And then this happens. He sighed, returning the paper to his pocket. I awoke early to pick up Naruto from his house, only to discover that he's part of a team tasked with rescuing Sasuke from Orochimaru's clutches. And those words written on the paper. Are they trying to tell us something? What could those words possibly mean? But something bothers me. Sasuke leaves just as I was about to discuss matters with both Naruto and Hokage-sama. I'm wondering if Hokage-sama forgot about our scheduled meeting today. But is there some sort of link between this paper and Sasuke deserting the leaf? This could be a message sent by Orochimaru to distract us, but I don't have any concrete evidence. He sighed as he jumped down from the branch. None of this makes any sense. He concluded as he returned to the village. Stall is. Jujiro Uzumaki walked through the lower basement, accompanied by one of his trusted bodyguards, Baku Uzumaki, on his way to the dungeon. The dungeon was located further down the palace's basement in Zentarian, and it had quite a reputation on its own. It was known throughout Stall for being impenetrable due to its depth underground and the high level of security down there. The emperor himself pays regular visits to the prisoners who are imprisoned there. Some were fortunate to be pardoned after serving a meaningful sentence, while others were sentenced to death by hanging. Since the empire's inception, there has been no record of successful escapes, though there have been a few attempts to flee the dreadful place. This is where spies from other nations stay until they die, to ensure that the empire's secret remains hidden, at least until the invasion plan is carried out. The dungeon was also known as Spiral Hurricane, because when a person gets caught in a hurricane head-on, there is no way out, living up to the dungeon's reputation for being inescapable. The most recent case involved a guard stationed at Italan, the country's outer wall. Hiro was the one who apprehended and interrogated him before he left for Uzushiogakure with Kenzo and Fuko. According to the Frost Commander, he noticed the guard shivering in his presence, which was a dead giveaway because Hiro had trained all of his soldiers to be accustomed to his cold aura. After encasing the guard in his ice, he instructed 2 other guards stationed at the main gate to transport him to the capital for proper interrogation when he returned. During certain hours, the prisoners were allowed to roam around the dungeon. Jujiro had developed sympathy for the poor people imprisoned there since his early days, even going so far as to have his servants construct an underground canteen, barbershop, gym, and large bathroom. It was intended to give the prisoners another reason to live after they were pardoned. The guards followed a schedule that included an hour for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 2 hours of free time in the afternoon, and half an hour for every bath, as per the emperor's direct orders. Inmates could also request haircuts whenever they needed them. Ironically, the Spiral Hurricane became a decent place for criminals. Apparently, the 7 all pointed out the spies who were lurking all around Stall, and all of them were executed after revealing their allegiance. Jujiro was a gentle soul who despised the barbaric act of hanging a ninja, villager, or whoever it might be. Throughout his reign, he never executed anyone who had received a death sentence. Instead of pardoning the spies, he offered them a new life in Zentarian. If the particular spy refuses, Jujiro will leave the matter to the 7, who will be free to execute or torture the person as they see fit. His father, Hirooki, was the perpetrator of the death penalty for spies, which he strongly opposed. However, he had no choice if that particular spy continued to refuse. This is why he was grateful that the Eyes of Storm were with him the entire journey. Haruko, his son, would never agree to participate in any activity with his father, so he was basically hopeless. Random guards will also not help. Jujiro was a pacifist when he was inside of stall. He doesn't want anything bad to tarnish the country's image, so he formed the Seven to help him organize everything. It turned out to be for the best, because if an execution was about to take place, the Seven would gladly take over for him because, once again, he was a pacifist in his own domain. Baku and Raiji were the first eyes of Storm, and Jujiro considers them to be his best friends. In turn, both the King of Elements and the Jinchuriki Prince regard him as a friend and emperor. Baku was the only one who could accompany Raiji because there were no classes at the academy that day, and Raiji was still busy tending to the shipping route dilemma near the Land of Waves. Your Majesty, may I inquire as to why we are proceeding to the dungeon? Baku inquired as he followed his leader's steps towards the end of the long corridor in the large basement. This basement was apparently used for private training quarters, but no one has been seen training here in years. At the end of the long corridor was a metal doorway with a metal screen near the top that let people see what was inside. I just want to pay a visit to the inhabitants there. And see how they are doing, the Emperor replied, now opening the metal door and waiting for Baku to enter. The old man went inside, his staff close by his side the entire time. What was inside the door wasn't a room at all, but rather a compartment small enough to fit about 7 people. A lever was near the door, and the entire section was covered in metal sheets. In this case, it was an elevator, also known as a lift. I recognize that expression on your face, Your Majesty. Baku said calmly, closing his eyes to take a deep breath. Is it correct that you have plans? Is it too much trouble to ask what you intend to do? Jujiro then drew the lever back and simply waited for the mechanism to work. The lift began to descend after a few loud noises of screws and machines interacting with each other, and all the two could see in front of them was pure rock. I've got to get someone to fix up this old lift, mumbled the Emperor before turning to Baku. So, in answer to your question, I haven't received another message from Hiro at Uzushigakure yet. He sent me his last message shortly after they arrived on the property. He hasn't sent out a hawk in 2 days. I told him to keep me updated on what was going on over there because we couldn't afford to mess up this plan. The Eclipse Portal plan brings the Empire one step closer to its ultimate goal. We can't afford to let anything slip through our fingers, which is why I prefer to keep up with what Hiro and the others are up to. Baku drew his left hand up to his chin and began to think deeply. The lift continued to descend, and they were now about 20 feet below the palace's basement. Your Majesty, I'm curious about the Eclipse Portal. Jujiro gave him a look. What exactly is it? What do you think will happen to the villages? The Eclipse Portal scheme is a one-way ticket to the destruction of whoever comes across it. The Leaf Village, most likely. They are known for being fierce fighters who don't know when to give up, according to what I recall from my youth. Most likely, they'll try to win by any means possible, including deception. With a slight chuckle, Jujiro exclaimed, hard to say. Yes, I am aware of Konoha's so-called Will of Fire, and they will most likely not give up if they become victims of the Eclipse Portal plan. But I doubt they can defeat 3 dragons and a madman. They will, one way or another, fall. It's a different story if they call in reinforcements. With the exception of Orochimaru's failed invasion on the Hidden Leaf, it appears that the villages are no longer hostile to one another. The combined power of 2 or more countries has yet to be proven. Your Majesty, the same can be said for the Empire. We will, without a doubt, triumph over every other country once the long-awaited invasion begins under your leadership. When you need us, the 7 are right by your side. While that is correct, my old friend, you must keep in mind that, while we have the advantage of surprise, the enemy is not to be underestimated. Especially when all 5 countries begin to collaborate against us. The 5 Kage are known to be the strongest shinobi in each of their villages, and given how they came to hold that position, we should expect them to become a threat if we underestimate them. Majesty, I doubt they'll be much of a challenge. Regardless, how they handle the opening of the gateway will provide us with a complete picture of how they operate, their resources, and their shinobi's abilities and skills. Of course, that depends on which village discovers it first. That will, indeed, be something to see. I'm especially curious to see how Kashina Uzumaki's son handles the situation. This is why I originally sent Kenzo, Fuko, and Hiro to the land of whirlpools. I told them to pay special attention to the Leaf Village because that is where Kashina Uzumaki and her son are currently residing. I didn't want them to be involved in our conflict because they are family to me, but I'd love to see how that boy handles the Eclipse Doorway. Will he engage in combat? Or will he crumble? And that is why. Baku looked at his boss for a few moments before speaking again. Your Majesty, you appear to be interested in that boy. Jujiro shook his head. With good reason, they thought, when the elevator finally stopped moving after 3 minutes underground. Oh, it looks like we've arrived, exclaimed the Emperor, a small smile on his face. Let us proceed. He then opened the metal door in front of them, only to be met by 2 ninjas who were guarding the entire area. Both were now in the Spiral Hurricane, also known as the Palace Dungeon. Many cells were divided into different columns, with the prisoners, who were all wearing the same brown tunic and short pants, spending their free time in the morning before heading to the gym an hour later. The 2 ninjas guarding the main entrance pointed their tantos at them. Normally, doing this to the Emperor would be a serious offense, but not in this case. To ensure that no one else could enter the dungeon except the 7, the Emperor himself, and his family, there was a verbal code that served as a password to ensure that no outsider could fool them. Where do you think you're going? One of them, who had wavy black hair and a beard, asked Jujiro, narrowing his eyes. The Empire is the future, Jujiro stated calmly. When they heard those words, the 2 guards lowered their weapons and bowed in respect. It is a pleasure to see you today, Your Highness, the guard said. The same is true for you, Baku, Element King. After a few seconds, the 2 rose and waited for the 2 older men in front of them to respond. Likewise. He shifted his gaze to the entire dungeon, scrutinizing every new detail. It had been a long time since he had entered the dungeon, exactly 5 years since he first asked his servants to construct the few establishments in the place, which included the canteen and the gym. It wasn't his style to constantly check on the prisoners, because his main bodyguards did it all the time. But now he had a compelling reason. What can we do for you 2 today, Your Highness? Inquired the other guard, who had short, orange hair. For a moment, he adjusted his clothes. We've come to see prisoner A746. When they heard what he said, the 2 ninjas' eyes widened. Baku couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in curiosity. He knew Jujiro was going to pay a visit to someone, but he didn't expect it to be A746. In Spiral Hurricane, prisoners were classified into 4 categories based on their notoriety and importance to the Empire. Those labeled D were of the least concern, as they had committed minor offenses. Prisoners in this category are guaranteed to be pardoned after a significant period of detention. The C ones are those who continued to commit crimes against Stahl after being pardoned. After serving their time, all detainees labeled C are given a trial. The trial can either be their way out of the Spiral Hurricane or their demise. Following that, the B category includes people who commit major crimes as well as those who continue to commit offenses despite having been pardoned twice previously. Everyone classified as a B prisoner faces certain death, with no chance of escaping alive. Finally, the A prisoners are unique, because it is up to the Emperor to decide what to do with a certain A prisoner. Only a few are considered to be in this category. These individuals are widely regarded as the most dangerous and notorious inmates in the country. Whether they die or live is determined by the Emperor's will, in this case, Jujiro. The A prisoners had a different schedule than the other prisoners, with only 2 hours of free time instead of the usual 4 hours. They had to be kept at a safe distance because they are deemed too dangerous. There were only 5 A prisoners at the time, with 2 of them working as top-tier spies for Jujiro. The other two have yet to find their calling. Prisoner A746 is still in her cell, the orange-haired ninja replied, pointing to the dungeon's far left side from his vantage point. There were 4 massive columns of cells, one on top of the other, all arranged according to notoriety. The A detainees were housed on the far left side, with the D prisoners on the far right side, descending in notoriety. They were all divided by stone walls. She hasn't left her place at all. It doesn't appear that she intends to either, Your Highness. We're actually thinking of having her lunch delivered to her later because she doesn't appear to be leaving that filthy junk of a cell she's in, even during her 2-hour free period. Then you ought to. Regardless of their wishes, all prisoners should eat fairly. After all, it is in our nature to eat. Thank you, and keep going. With those words, the 2 guards bowed once more before returning to their earlier positions near the dungeon's main door. Baku, let us move on. Following the Emperor to the left side of Spiral Hurricane, the latter nodded. Along the way, many of the prisoners in the C and B prison cells continued to insult them from their hellholes, despite the guards' best efforts to silence them. Baku and Jujiro ignored them and continued on their journey. The Element King used this opportunity to learn more about his leader's plans. Is there a reason we're visiting A746, Your Majesty? Given that she is now an assassin, it is understandable that you would want to see her. Correct, the Emperor said as he passed through the A section. Because of the threat level and importance of the 5 people detained in this category, they are kept apart. Every cell the 2 passed through had plaques on top with their prisoner names imprinted on them. The cell of A746 was located at the far end of the hallway, as evidenced by the plaque. She's perfectly suited to be an assassin. And once she's ready to go on long missions, she'll have her own room, just like here. Another reason is that I'd like to see how she's doing down here. Afterward, he shrugged his shoulders. Well, given that she was a former Konoha shinobi, surely she knows how to survive on her own while out on the field. But I still want to see her current condition. Your Majesty, I must say. Baku closed his eyes and exhaled deeply. I think it's a bit stupid to send one of the Leaf's own to act against them. Aren't the Uchiha twins better suited for the type of missions you're planning for A746? Kenzo had asked the same question. Baku, the twins may have already been on reconnaissance missions since graduating a few months ago. But we can't deny that it is still too early for them to go on such large missions. Perhaps in a few years, when they have reached their full potential, we will allow them to spend more time in the field. For the time being, A746 will be useful to us. It's a shame that the Sanbi is no longer sealed inside her. We'd have had a powerful Biju on our side. But on the bright side, she's now 30 years old, which means she can very well take care of herself. I comprehend. But what kind of mission do you have in mind for the woman? Hiro trained her as an assassin to be proficient in silent killing and stealth, though the role of a medical ninja suits her better. Because they were now in front of A746's cell, the 2 abruptly came to a halt. Only a pair of eyes darting towards the ground were visible to Jujiro and Baku's vision. Let's just say she'll be paying a visit to some of her former teammates soon, Baku. Anyone who can figure out who prisoner A746 is deserves a special shout-out. The Land of Fire. The Sasuke Recovery Team, as Kiba had dubbed them, was speeding through the vast country's dense forest. Kiba informed them that Sasuke had suddenly stopped moving for some reason. They had been chasing the 4 sound ninjas in a single-line formation for the past 2 hours. Because there were no threats in their path, they focused solely on Kiba. Shikamaru was initially hesitant to pursue them because it was a risky move that could be a trap, but he eventually decided it would be better for them to catch up. How far, Kiba? The Nara inquired of the genin in front of him. Not far now. Looks like they've come to a halt, he replied. And how about you, Neji? They haven't moved from their positions. They're still in that small open area not far from where we are, the Hyuga replied, noting every detail he could see. And one of them has a small coffin beside it. I can also see someone inside of it. There's a chance it's Sasuke because there are no chakra signatures in their area, but we never know. They must be planning something. Shikamaru continued, contemplating their next strategy. We must avoid the possibility of fighting either of them one-on-one. This is a rescue mission, not a mission to defend the subject. We only need to retrieve Sasuke and return, but how can we do so without being detected? I've got something for you, but it's risky, guys. Naruto made the declaration, drawing the attention of his teammates. Well, tell us. Choji exclaimed. At the moment, anything will do. Naruto raised his head. No time. I can feel 4 different chakra signatures approaching. Just hide somewhere they can't detect you. Once I give a clear signal, which in this case is 3 short whistle blasts, all of you will swoop in and capture Sasuke. While you're hiding, keep an eye out for that Teme, as well as who's guarding the coffin he's inside, in case, as Neji suggested, he's really hiding inside one. You understand that you must act quickly in order to avoid failure? Wow, who knew an idiot like you could devise a plan? Kiba sarcastically inquired. He's always had the ability to craft ideas like these, Neji said, not taking his gaze away from the 4 people he saw in the coffin with another chakra signature. But first, I'll need each of you to hold my hand for a few seconds before we separate. It's critical that I give you some of my chakra later on, or else you'll be roasted like a live chicken. When the blonde saw Kiba about to say something, he cut him off. There's no time for questions. Just hold my hand before we part ways, that's all. That settles it, then, Shikamaru said, turning his attention to Naruto in particular. You're lucky to be a fellow Chunin like me. No, scratch that, you have a slightly higher position, because otherwise I wouldn't have considered your idea. Uzumaki, the blonde, could only nod in response. Let's get this over with. We split up once we're 20 meters within range of the 4 sound shinobis, everyone. Keep an eye out for Sasuke. He told them all, and they only nodded in response, like Naruto. That they did, scattering the 4 other team members throughout the large forest, leaving Naruto as the only one heading directly towards the Sound 4. Hold on, Sasuke. I'll save you, he reasoned. Naruto found himself in an open area of the forest with no trees when they arrived at the location where they detected the 4 chakra signatures. He decided to stop running and start walking, while also looking around for the sound ninjas who might be hiding in the distance. He had his back turned when he heard multiple sounds of people landing on the ground. With a smirk on his face, he turned around to see 4 Auto Nin holding his teammates hostage, all with kunais aimed at their necks. Kiba and Choji were struggling to free themselves from their captors' grasps, whereas Shikamaru and Neji were just staring at Naruto, knowing that this was all part of his plan. Naruto's gaze was drawn to the coffin next to the girl with red hair and a hat. He now knew where Sasuke was. Now he must put his plan into action. He clenched his fists in anger and clicked his tongue in disappointment, pretending to be irritated. Damn it, why was I so careless? He grumbled to himself. I should have known they'd come after my friends. How did you even know where they were? He insisted. Stupid kid, we detected your presence long before you split up. Exclaimed Kidomaru triumphantly. Tayuya yelled at the 6-armed freak, shut up, fuckhead. That's no ordinary kid. He's Konoha's celestial ninja. The one who defeated Lord Orochimaru in combat. I don't care. He appears weak to me. Kidomaru shook his head, pointing his kunai dangerously close to Neji's neck. Please let my friends go, pleaded Naruto. We'll stop chasing after Sasuke. Could you please let them go? I can't let them suffer as a result of my stupid plan. Look, you can take Sasuke wherever you want, but please let my friends go. We'll be on our way and won't bother you again. Interesting deal, Sakin smirked. But how can we be sure you're not playing tricks on us? This young man appears eager to see you again, he went on, pointing at Kiba, who was still struggling to get out of his grip. Tell you what, we'll gladly accept your offer. But we'll do it our way, kid. What do you want? Naruto asked, his gaze fixed on them. He waited a few seconds, but there was no response. Tell me. Tell me now or I'll blow all of your heads off. He made a threat. Sakin laughed evilly. If you truly want it that way, turn around and flee from here. We'll let you go if you can run away for 1 minute without looking back at these friends of yours. We'll put an end to them once we see you look. Choose your actions wisely, brat. Your decision could very well lead to these other brats here. How can I be sure you won't stab me in the back or anything? He yelled at them, kneeling on one knee, his voice filled with rage. I don't believe a single thing you say. You'll kill them in cold blood the moment I turn around. I've seen enough liars in my life to know whether or not someone is telling the truth, and you're clearly just trying to get inside my head. So please. Let us proceed in a more civilized and peaceful manner. Please let them go and we will no longer bother you. Sasuke is all yours. After all, that Teme didn't care much about the village. Sakin laughed. What's the point of that, then? Remember that you are the one who created Orochimaru-sama as he is now. You even had the fortitude to accompany us all the way here. You were the one who attacked, so now you must pay the price. You'll never know until you do it, brat. We'll let these scumbags go after they run away for 1 minute without looking back. As he stood up, Naruto kept his gaze fixed on him. Even if it was Orochimaru who initiated the invasion in the first place. I'd say you've gone insane. He returned his gaze to his friends. Choji and Kiba were shaking their heads as if to say no, while Neji and Shikamaru remained as silent as ever, simply staring at the Uzumaki. Alright, here I go. He sighed regretfully. That's right, you should flee, you little A. Before Sakin could finish his sentence, Naruto jumped into the air, weaving through a quick set of hand seals and turning around in midair to face the sound 4 down below. Tiger, horse, monkey, ram, and dragon, Uchten, Dosei no Ringu. Space release. Saturn rings, he screamed, and 4 energy discs appeared on top of his palms almost instantly. He then whistled 3 short blasts before throwing them all at the 4 auto nin. The remaining members of the Sasuke recovery team braced for impact, but as soon as the energy discs hit the ninjas holding them down, their eyes widened as Naruto's chakra shielded them from the ensuing explosion. The chakra was yellow, indicating that it was indeed the Uzumaki chakra, specifically the space chakra, protecting his friends from his own technique. Neji noticed a tinge of white in his chakra but ignored it. Shikamaru smirked, realizing this was what Naruto had meant earlier when he asked them to hold his hand. The explosions caused the entire Sound 4 to let go of the boys they were holding down, having been directly hit by the energy discs. As soon as Naruto landed back on the ground, Neji and Shikamaru searched for the coffin containing Sasuke, while Kiba and Choji threw smoke bombs to extend their time. We got it! Exclaimed Shikamaru as he carried the coffin away from the smoke that still obscured the 4 sound ninjas beneath after only a few moments of searching. Alright, let's get out of here. The other genins nodded and began to flee the scene so they could finish the mission. Oh, no you don't! Yelled someone, drawing the attention of the entire team. Turning around to see who it was, several shots of spider webs shot out of the smoke, precisely catching all of the young teenagers on their feet and legs. They attempted to move, but it was futile because they were stuck to the ground. Then they tried cutting the webbing that was holding them down with their kunais, but it proved to be strong enough to withstand every slash they made. Naruto resisted the urge to use Stardust to break free from the webs because he knew it wasn't the right time to reveal one of his secret weapons. The smoke had dissipated before they realized it, revealing the Sound 4, who were perfectly fine even after the explosion, albeit with minor burns. When they saw Tayuya charging towards them, Neji immediately tried to free himself with his own gentle fist, which worked effectively, breaking free of his restraints with ease, causing gasps all over the place at how quick he was able to react. Catch her before she kidnaps Sasuke again. Naruto said this, and Neji turned his gaze to the redhead girl who was about to approach Shikamaru. However, before he could even make a move to pursue her, he noticed 3 more web blasts heading his way, which he quickly destroyed before returning to Tayuya. Unfortunately for him, she had already retrieved the coffin and jumped over Neji to avoid being struck by his lethal taijutsu strikes. In retaliation, the Hyuga prodigy turned to his friends and began tearing apart the webbing that was tying them all together, causing the Sound 4 to panic. Damn it, if that white-eyed freak keeps fucking up Egghead's webs, they'll get away. Tayuya exclaimed as she gathered her team. Hey, you cretins. Move your asses and figure out how to get them before they all move. Jirobo took a step forward and turned his head to look at his female teammate. Watch your language, he warned her, to which she responded by rolling her eyes in annoyance, before returning his attention to the Sasuke recovery team, who were now all free of the webs that had held them in place. Let's get them before they get away, exclaimed Naruto as they charged towards their 4 opponents. Jirobo slammed both of his palms on the ground, causing rocks to erupt from the ground and form a circle around the 5 boys. Doden Kekai. Door DMU, Earth Release Barrier, Earth Dome Prison, he said, causing more rocks to rise from the ground, forming an entirely rock dome that completely surrounded the Konoha ninjas, preventing them from moving. Because of how quickly events were unfolding, the Sound 4 took a few moments to breathe in and out a few times. Jirobo paused to survey his teammates before speaking. Get going. I'll deal with these rascals. You shouldn't take too long, Fatso. Tayuya spoke as Kitamaru approached the coffin beside her, attempting to carry it with his 4 extra arms, but all of them were frozen in place by what happened next. Mokase. Jupiter. Screamed a voice from within the rock dome, causing Sakin, Kitamaru, and Tayuya to turn their gaze towards their colossal comrade, who only shook his head in response, as he had no idea what was going on. Nobody has ever spoken that loudly from inside his dome, which is designed to muffle all types of noise and damage. Before they could comprehend what was going on, a massive laser beam appeared in the sky above them, capturing their attention. The laser beam slammed into the rock dome, obliterating it in the process. Jirobo was forced to cancel his technique in order to avoid being hit, while the other Auto Nin behind him simply widened their eyes in surprise at what they saw. The laser beam vanished after about 10 seconds, revealing an unscathed Sasuke recovery team. Naruto stood out from the crowd, his Uchtengan activated, sending chills down the spines of the Sound 4. Shit. We'll go from there. If we stay behind, that blonde kid can take us all down. Tayuya screamed, taking the coffin and running deep into the forest again, Sakin trailing behind her, leaving Kitamaru and Jirobo behind. Not if I can help it, Kitamaru said arrogantly as he prepared his webbing. Amazing feat getting out of that dome, but you're not going anywhere. He then fired his webbing at them, immobilizing them, prompting Neji to step in front of his team and destroy all of his web blasts with the gentle fist. The 6-armed man's eyes narrowed in annoyance as Naruto began to speak. Keep the plan in mind, guys. Shikamaru, hurry up. Kiba. He immediately called out to his 2 teammates, extending both of his arms for them to take. They did so while tightly gripping his arms. Keep your grip tight. Meteor, Raisei. He yelled, coating all 3 of them in yellow light, and they flew past the 2 remaining Sound 4 members with incredible speed, landing deep inside the forest, just behind Tayuya and Sakin. Fortunately, the 2 Sound ninjas were unaware of their presence. Even though it was only a short distance, Naruto took a few deep breaths because carrying 2 people while using his meteor required a significant amount of chakra. As they moved through the trees, he almost tripped on a branch, but Shikamaru was there to help him keep his balance. A few seconds later, the Uzumaki was back to normal, as energetic as ever as they pursued the remaining two enemies. Meanwhile, back at the open area that had been obliterated by Naruto's earlier summoned laser beam, Kidomaru gritted his teeth and began to run after Naruto, Shikamaru, and Kiba. Neji immediately followed in his footsteps. After sensing Neji's presence behind him, the Auto Nin exclaimed, "Get close and I'll kill you, brat." Even though they were now inside the continuation of the deep forest, the Hyuga didn't seem to be going anywhere. "Stupid kid, get lost," he yelled, turning around for a split second to launch a web blast at the young prodigy, who easily avoided the attack. "TCH, I can't catch up to the others in this condition," he thought. "I'm going to have to look after this kid first." He then made a sharp right turn, with Neji close behind him. They were now well off the trail of the others. Neji quickly realized what he was doing and could only take a deep breath. "I knew it, he can't risk having me close behind. I'm not sure if this battle will take my life, but if it does, I'll die knowing that I fought as a loyal ninja of the leaf." In his mind, an image of Naruto appeared. "Naruto, your eyes are better than mine. I know you'll be the one to return Sasuke to the village. You have the power to change his heart, just as you have mine. I have complete confidence in you, my friend." Neji Hyuga versus Kidomaru like cannon. Choji was still back at the open area, preparing to catch up with his teammates. "Hold your horses, everyone. I'll pitch in as well." However, just as he was about to run, Jirobo stood defiantly in front of him, blocking his path. When the young Akamichi tried to move to the side, Jirobo imitated him, and the former realized there was no way out if he tried to flee. Choji took a deep breath as he realized that the only way out of this was to fight. "Guys, I'm counting on you all. Looks like I won't be able to help you after all. Bring Sasuke back to the village. Shikamaru, I know you can lead us to victory. You're my best friend," he thought to himself as he prepared for battle. Choji Akamichi versus Jirobo like cannon. Even though an entire day had passed, Tayuya and Saken continued on their way back to Otogakure. They were both perplexed when Kidomaru and Jirobo were still unable to catch up last night, as they had assumed both of them could handle only one child each. This confusion, however, did not deter them, and after a good night's sleep, they resumed their mission first thing in the morning. The remaining members of the recovery team were not far behind them, watching their every move. Kiba initially planned to sneak up on them while they were sleeping, but Shikamaru and Naruto both rejected his plan because the lack of light provided by the darkness would benefit their adversary because they can't see at night. Everything was quiet around the two sound ninjas, until Tayuya felt the coffin she was holding tremble slightly. "Hold on a second," she said as she came to a stop next to Saken on a large branch. "Is there something wrong with the Uchiha?" Saken asked, his gaze narrowed at the coffin. "I don't think so, I just felt this thing shake for a second. His seal must be getting close. Then we have to hurry back. How far do we have to go?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "We're still a long way from the village. It'll take us another day." Damn. Where in the hell are those two? He felt 3 different chakra signatures behind him, causing him to look behind him and cut himself from his own words. Tayuya followed his gaze and turned around to see Naruto, Shikamaru, and Kiba standing behind them with smirks on their faces. "I thought Kidomaru and Jirobo looked after you 3, the redhead scowled at the 3 children. "No, it's just us," exclaimed Naruto. Saken charged towards them, bracing himself for a fight. "No big deal," he said triumphantly. "I'm ready to take on all of you." "Uh-oh, he's coming for us," exclaimed the blonde, casting a shadow clone beside him as he prepared one of his signature moves. "Be prepared." Shikamaru and Kiba both jumped towards Saken, but were quickly caught in the latter's rapid-fire punches, rendering both boys unconscious. That is, until they blew up in a cloud of smoke, revealing themselves to be shadow clones all along. Tayuya and Saken were both taken aback. Shadow clones? They both exclaimed at the same time. I have you now, Naruto declared, as the clone beside him vanished as he finished his technique and prepared to use it on the enemy in front of him. Rasengan. A spinning ball of chakra? Thought the Auto Nin before grabbing the Uzumaki's right arm and preventing him from performing the technique. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw how easily Saken countered his jutsu. This isn't going to work, kid. Kiba. Naruto yelled, and Kiba appeared behind him, using his signature technique. Gatsuga. Fang over fang, he yelled, directing his attention to Naruto's back. Saken was so confused that he didn't notice the blonde boy in front of him explode in a cloud of smoke, revealing him to be a shadow clone as well. He quickly dodged to the side to avoid Kiba's attack, but the latter carried on with his technique, now heading towards Tayuya and the coffin beside her. I see, so Saken wasn't the real target. She reasoned. It was always me. Her eyes widened as she felt something take over her before she could even respond to Kiba's technique. Wait, what is this? I can't move. She slowly turned her head to the side, where she noticed Shikamaru from a distance. What in the world did you do? She exclaimed. It's called the Shadow Possession Jutsu, he replied calmly, maintaining his hold on the girl. Kiba then abandoned his technique and grabbed the coffin, fleeing with it. I got it. Saken quickly recovered from the shock of the technique that nearly killed him earlier. You're not getting away. He then pursued Kiba, but when he saw Tayuya making no move to apprehend the kid who had just stolen the coffin, he narrowed his eyes. What are you doing? Put a stop to him. I can't. Exclaimed the red-haired sound nin, who had been following Shikamaru's steps when he suddenly began moving forward. Shikamaru then relinquished his temporary control over Tayuya, allowing her to regain control of herself. But it was too late because Saken had just collided with her, sending the two of them tumbling into another tree branch, and then Kiba, who was hanging just above them, threw the coffin to one of his teammates. Naruto, catch! He said, and the blonde-haired Uzumaki, like a moth drawn to a flame, caught it in his hands as he began to run out of there with Kiba and Akamaru. Okay, then. We have Sasuke. Let us get out of here, Shikamaru. He summoned his dark-haired companion. I know, what a drag. He grumbled as he caught up to the two of them. I can't believe they fell for something so simple, what a wuss. Saken and Tayuya were separated at another tree branch, the former fuming with rage. He tapped his foot a few times on the branch, causing black markings to appear all over his body. He had used his cursed seal. I'm not going to let you get away so easily. He roared, chasing after the boys, Tayuya close behind. Meanwhile, the trio immediately noticed Saken running after them, but luckily, Akamaru had been planting explosive tags as they fled to ensure their safety. Well done, Akamaru. Kiba told his friend, pausing briefly to check on his little friend, who barked angrily in response. Naruto and Shikamaru stopped moving as well, turning around when they realized Kiba was no longer following them. A loud scream in the distance, however, stopped the little dog in his tracks, and his voice reeked of rage. I told you, you rascals, you're not going anywhere. Saken screamed before an explosive tag near him detonated, engulfing the area around him in a small explosion that did little to harm him. Stupid children. You're really irritating me. He then proceeded to the three-leaf ninjas until he heard something barking below him. Looking down, he noticed Akamaru growling at him, an explosive tag beside him. So you were the one who set that off, huh? Throwing a wire string that wrapped around the dog and tethered him to the tree. Let's see how you like it if you're the one who blows up. Akamaru. Exclaimed Kiba as he dashed after his best friend. Wait a minute, buddy. Kiba, no. Naruto screamed, attempting to run after them, but Shikamaru raised an arm to prevent him from moving. I'm here, buddy, the young Inuzuka said as he landed on the branch where his friend was before releasing the string that was holding him down. However, He realized too late that the explosive tag in front of him was about to detonate. Realizing it was too late to flee, he hugged Akamaru close to his chest and turned away as the tag exploded, engulfing the area in a cloud of dust. Akamaru. Kiba. After witnessing one of their friends take the full force of an explosion, Naruto and Shikamaru both froze. As he opened his eyes after falling off a cliff, Kiba was still hugging Akamaru close to his chest. He looked to the side and saw Sakin was also caught in the explosion before returning his attention to his best friend in his arms. "Hang on, Akamaru. I won't let you be in danger." He swore internally as he and Sakin continued to fall down the deep cliff, about to land at a river below. A.N. Kiba Inuzuka and Akamaru vs Sakin and Yukon as canon. Include Kankuro if he appears. Naruto gritted his teeth and tried to pursue them, but Shikamaru stopped him. "Shikamaru, what are you doing? We must assist them. That is no longer an option. Naruto, we have a mission to complete right now." Nara informed him. "I can rescue him with Meteor." He tried reasoning, but was interrupted by a voice in his head. "Don't use your space techniques yet, Kit. Save them for the most dangerous enemy," Kurama advised. "What the hell is the point? Kiba is a friend of mine, and I will not put him in danger." He retorted. "That Nara kid is correct, Kit. You still have work to do. Don't you want to bring Uchiha back to the village?" "Of course, I do. It's just that I can't leave another one of my friends behind. Choji and Neji have already been abandoned in unknown locations, and we have no idea whether they are safe or not." "Are you saying you don't trust them?" That appeared to put Naruto in his place. "When you talked about your plan earlier, those two willingly let themselves be left behind, and you seemed fine with it. Until now. What in the world happened?" Naruto has yet to respond. They were obviously willing to give their lives to get the mission started. "Are you allowing their sacrifice to go unnoticed?" "No." "Then go out there and bring Uchiha back to the village. Kit, your friends will be fine, and don't underestimate their abilities. Just because you see things differently than everyone else does not make you superior. I once doubted Kushina's ability to defeat an A-class battalion of mercenaries, but she proved me wrong." Naruto almost laughed at his memory, but he restrained himself. He came to an answer after a few moments of thought about the situation. The Kyuubi was correct. He should not be skeptical of his friend's abilities. During the exams, he praised both Sasuke and Neji's abilities, as well as Sakura's. Perhaps he was overly confident in himself. Because he had no choice but to admit he would be nothing without his Uchtengan. He lacked real skill in any of the elements, so he had to rely on his eyes to help him in battle. Perhaps it was the other way around. Perhaps he was the one who was frail. He inhaled deeply. "Okay, I get it. I'm not going to doubt them anymore. That's a good thing. Return to the real world and prepare. It's not the red-haired bitch who's been chasing the two of you. It's something more strange. Keep an eye on your back and your head up in the game. He could be sneaking up on you from around the corner." He cautioned his host. "Got it. Thank you, Kurama." The tailed beast only shrugged before cutting their connection, causing Naruto to return to reality. As soon as he regained consciousness, the blonde noticed Tayuya speeding towards him and Shikamaru. Before he could comprehend what was going on, he felt someone tap his shoulder a few times, drawing Naruto's attention. "What is it?" he inquired. "Naruto, take the coffin with you," Shikamaru informed him. "You must get Sasuke out of here right away. Your meteor should be able to get out of this forest quickly. I'll look after that lady." "Are you insane?" incredulously asked Naruto. "We've just lost Kiba, and now you?" "We don't have time to argue, Naruto. Simply use your meteor to transport the coffin out of the forest." You should be fast enough that no one can catch up with you. Tayuya snarled. Enough chit-chat, punks. It's time for me to reclaim that fucking coffin. She screamed as she got closer to them, only to stop dead in her tracks when she sensed a familiar presence in the area. An action that left the two remaining members of the recovery team frozen in place, wondering why she just stopped. How can he be here? She grumbled. Naruto didn't miss a beat and deduced right away that Kurama was correct when he said he detected another person's chakra in the area. A person in white was gliding down from a higher branch above them, which the Uzumaki noticed when he turned around with a feral expression on his face. Oh no, you don't. He yelled, swinging his fist at the newcomer, only for him to easily parry the attack, kicking the coffin to another branch and following him. Tayuya's pupils constricted. What the hell are you doing here? She mumbled, unable to believe her eyes. Naruto and Shikamaru both turned around to face the man who had appeared out of nowhere. He was a tall man with pale skin, vivid green eyes, two distinct scarlet dots on his brow, and shoulder-length white hair parted down the middle with two separate partings on either side of his face. His outfit included a light lavender, loose-fitting, long-sleeved, zip-up shirt, black pants cut off around the mid-calf, bandages wrapped around his ankles, traditional shinobi sandals, and a purple, rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around his waist. In addition, he wore two red, tube-like hair ornaments, one on each side of his head, securing two locks of his silvery white hair. Finally, a strange marking was discovered at the base of his throat, described as a circular pattern of 3 curved lines. Sorry, Naruto, it appears that I miscalculated. Shikamaru mumbled. Kimimaro? Asked the redhead clearly enough for the two Konoha ninja to hear. So that's his name, Nara explained. I'm having second thoughts about this guy. Tayuya, you were taking too long. What about the rest? In a low and deep voice, asked the man introduced as Kimimaro. What brought you here? The girl continued, blinking out of shock and looking at her fellow sound ninja, perplexed. Your body is. Or should be by now. Kimimaro raised his head. My body is too shattered to move on its own. I'm using my mind's power. No way. You're trying to outwit death? Now I understand better. Since escaping the prison of human flesh, my life force has grown stronger. He began to lovingly caress the top of the coffin. I've sampled Lord Orochimaru's dream. Naruto growled, feeling a slight pain in his heart. Orochimaru. The white-haired man brushed his hair away from his face. His new vessel is an essential component of his vision. This contains the flesh that Lord Orochimaru seeks. He spoke again, this time pointing to the coffin. And you took too much time retrieving it, he said coldly, causing Tayuya to flinch. Troublesome. Another wuss to deal with, he placed his hand just below his chin and started thinking. He doesn't appear to be your typical adversary. We need to buy time and sort out the situation, Naruto. Confronting him without a "Hey there, jackass. I've had about enough of this nonsense you've been spewing." He cut Shikamaru off by pointing his right index finger at Kimimaro. Naruto, calm down. Shikamaru tried calmly and clearly, but to no avail. The Uzumaki's body began to glow brightly as he clenched his fists. I'm returning Sasuke right now. He rushed towards Kimimaro with his meteor, and neither he nor Tayuya could see his movement. He's fast, the white-haired man thought to himself before quickly grabbing the coffin and fleeing, barely dodging Naruto, who had landed on the tree branch he had been on earlier. He quickly turned around to face his ally. I'll leave these two pieces of garbage to you, Tayuya. Don't let Lord Orochimaru down. Tayuya rose and gestured to the coffin he was carrying. Isn't that his next vessel? She inquired. Yes, and the only way I can please him is to deliver it to him. So make certain that these two do not follow, he finished as he walked away from the gourd. Naruto snarled and pursued him. Return here, you coward. Shikamaru sighed in his seat before facing Tayuya. Well? This is far too inconvenient. But it appears that I'll have to deal with you to ensure that you don't pursue Naruto. Shut up, you pineapple! Exclaimed the redhead, pulling out her flute. I'm going to beat your $1 and leave you for dead here before I track down and kill your dickless blonde friend. I'm not going to let any of you get in my way. Here we go. He said to himself as he prepared to fight. What a pain. Canon Shikamaru Nara versus Tayuya. Include Tamari when she appears. The chase between Naruto and Kimimaro continued deeper into the vast forest, where the blonde made several attempts to draw the white-haired sound ninja's attention to inquire about Orochimaru's plans, but he seemed to ignore him the entire time. Naruto reasoned that it was best not to use his meteor to catch up right away because it would result in a continuous decrease in chakra. Kurama had told him that this new enemy was unlike any of the others they had encountered previously, so saving his chakra if they had to fight would be the best option. This cat and mouse chase continued until they exited the forest and entered an open area. Kimimaro finally came to a halt, looking back to see Naruto, who still had a determined expression on her face. I figured you wouldn't know when to give up, Kimimaro said as he placed the coffin beside him and faced the Uzumaki. You're not like that other kid. You have a lot of chakra in reserve, he grumbled. Enough chit-chat! Exclaimed Naruto. What does Orochimaru want from Sasuke? What does he want that would compel Sasuke to leave the village? I have no idea why this new vessel left the place you call home, he replied after a brief glance at the coffin. Naruto didn't care about that new vessel, he mentioned because he wanted to know what Konoha's biggest enemy at the time wanted with Sasuke. All I know is that Lord Orochimaru desires this boy's body as his vessel, allowing him to live a free and immortal life. Naruto was taken aback. What? Vessel? What do you mean? It's exactly as I said. Lord Orochimaru's main goal is to live forever, and he has constantly used countless ninjas to do so. Perhaps with this boy, he will be able to realize his dream. I don't have much time left on this planet, but it would be an honor to die knowing that I helped him achieve his goal in exchange for him helping me. There's no way I'd let you take Sasuke to that monster. Naruto said this while pulling stardust from behind his back. Kimimaro raised an eyebrow, perplexed by the strange-looking sword in his right hand. I don't care who you are, but I'm not going to let you take away my friend. Sasuke is returning with us, whether you like it or not. He thrust his sword at Kimimaro, activating his Uchtengan in the process. After I'm done with you, I'll show you how I make it rain. He was ready to fight, his sword clutched tightly in his hand. Interesting, the white-haired man muttered, his gaze drawn to Naruto's yellow eyes in particular. Very well, I'll make this quick then. Prepare for your demise, Leaf Shinobi, he replied, bracing himself for a fight.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.